What do you want to be when you grow up? Might be the dumbest fucking question of all time. I know, I'm coming in hot, but it's because this question really irks me. And to be clear, I don't think that anyone who asks this is dumb or has malicious intent. It's a great question for parents to ask their children when they're trying to figure out what Halloween costume to buy them. But as we get older, the question transforms, and suddenly we're picking a college major and choosing a career path. But maybe you're like me, and you still don't really have an answer for what do you want to be when you grow up, or when people ask you,
what do you do?
Because the list just goes on and on and on, and maybe you even feel shame for your perceived lack of follow-through, or guilty for your career indecisiveness. Well, and this might surprise you, at one time, people like you and me were celebrated. Having many different interests was the ideal, and it's thanks to that mindset that we got greats like Leonardo da Vinci and Benjamin Franklin. So what the fuck happened? And how do we go about reprogramming the narrative that there's something wrong with being drawn to many different disciplines or deeply curious about a lot of different things? For the next however long this ends up being, I am gonna be your hype man, your Navarro College cheerleader. By the end of this, I want you to feel so psyched about the fact that you might be a polymath or a Renaissance person or a scanner or a multipotentialite, which are all just very cool words that people use to describe us. A quick disclaimer that I'm not an expert in this field, other than the fact that I too feel the guilt and the shame and the confusion that comes with having many different passions and interests. Richard Bach says, we teach best what we most need to learn, and it's very true in this case. This is something that I'm actively navigating in my own life, and a big part of the reason that I'm making this video is because it's something that I struggle with. So what I'm gonna do is break down the 4 biggest reasons I found through research and personal experience why being this type of person is actually pretty badass. I'll include some links to things that have been helpful for me in the description, but if you're ready, come with me on a journey to justify our existence, which sounds oddly morbid now that I say it out loud. Number 1, building bridges. I mentioned our pal Leo da Vinci earlier because he really is the poster child for people like us. This dude was into painting and inventing and sculpting, architecture, anatomy, astrology, cartography, geology, music, science, math, literature, just to name a few. And it was because he had all those interests that he was able to innovate and cross-pollinate in everything that he did. Whether we know it or not, we are constantly using our breadth of knowledge in everything that we do. What we learn in one area can be applied to some other area in some unexpected way. My favorite example of this is Steve Jobs, who, after he dropped out of college, enrolled in a calligraphy course. You know what? I'll let him tell you.
I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later.
I mean, that's pretty cool. That last part about connecting dots is the perfect segue to reason number 2, unexpected constellations. This one can be explained pretty simply. One thing leads to another, and you just never know what that next thing might be. If you think about anything that's happened in your life, there was a specific series of events that led to that specific moment. Each experience or project that you do is like a little star in the universe of you. And with a little bit of perspective and time, those seemingly random stars start to form these perfect constellations. Let me give you a quick example from my own life. Starting in 2017, I was making these ridiculous videos playing games on the red carpets of Broadway opening nights. Very niche. And even though I loved meeting new people and editing together these silly videos, I feared that it was steering me away from opportunities in something else that I loved, which was performing. Well, in the winter of 2019, I booked Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It was a dream role that I did not know that I had. And it turns out that the director had seen those videos and thought my improv skills were strong enough for me to take on this role. If I had never made those videos, there is no way I would have ever been able to get this part. Which is all just to say, the dots are always connecting behind the scenes, whether we know it or not. And it is not our job to know what comes next, but it is our job to do whatever we're doing right now to the best of our ability. And be a sponge, soak up as much knowledge and information as we possibly can, which leads us to reason number 3, a lifetime of learning. Eartha Kitt said, "I am learning all the time. The tombstone will be my diploma." And I think for people like us, this is a good reminder. Life is constantly teaching us lessons if we're willing to learn them. And we can actively be seeking out experiences that push us outside of our comfort zone so that we can learn new things and gain more knowledge about the world around us and the people around us, and probably most of all, ourselves. In a video I made a few weeks ago, I mentioned that one of my favorite things to do is have an idea, learn the skills I need, and then bring it to life. That just sounds like fun to me because I know by the end of that project, I'm gonna have a new skill to add to my tool belt. And this, for me, is one of the greatest advantages of being a polymath. We get to keep learning. And by the way, just as a bonus, learning new things is actually really good for your brain. Every time you practice a new skill, you are building new neural pathways in your brain. You're increasing white matter, which builds neuroplasticity, which helps you think more clearly, and it helps fight off aging and dementia. So yeah, science is on our side too. To embrace lifelong learning is to admit that there is always room to grow. And as Einstein said, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And let me tell you, I don't know shit.
I understand nothing.
Number 4, the big fat why. If you're a personal development, self-improvement nerd like me, you've probably heard of Simon Sinek and what he coined as the why. That driving force behind everything that we do. It's kind of like your mission or your purpose, but it's a little more wide-reaching in that it can be applied to every area of your life. So my why, as I understand it currently, is to tap into people's light so that we can form deeper connections with ourselves and one another. So no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm performing on stage or making a video or writing a song or hanging out with my friends or spending time with my family or talking to my fiance, I am always trying to tap into their light so that we can form deeper connections with ourselves and one another. And what I think is useful, especially in this context about the why, is that it opens up hundreds, if not thousands of lanes for what we can do. Because at the root of all of them is our why. For so long, I felt so confused about all the things that I was doing and how they were all connected. And then when I found my why, it all just made more sense because they all serve the same purpose. Plus, it becomes an incredible filter for deciding whether or not you want to take on a certain opportunity. If it doesn't align with your why, then it's an easy no. You know, for people like us with so many different things we're interested in, the why contextualizes them all. And to embrace your identity as a polymath or Renaissance person or scanner or multipotentialite is to embrace the why. So how does one find their why? Well, it just so happens that Simon and his team offer a plethora of resources to help you find yours. And I will drop links to those in the description of this video in case you're curious. But in the meantime, let us address the elephant in the room.
There is an elephant in the room, David.
So you might be thinking, Matt, this is all great. I'm super inspired. I feel proud. I feel excited. What do I do now? You know, how do I know where to start? I have so many different ideas and interests. Where do I even begin? Well, choose. I know, I can't believe that that's the best advice I have for you either, but really just choose. And remember that decision is not an ending. You're not cutting anything off. It's a start. No matter what you're doing, you'll be building bridges and putting together constellations and learning new things and serving your why, whether you know it or not. And of course, this is all a very delicate balance between floating away with each new thread of curiosity and digging your feet into where you are right now. But I know with all my heart that if we just choose to embrace who we are as polymaths and Renaissance people and scanners and multipotentialites, whatever word you want to use, the pieces will fall into place. We'll start to ride the waves of grace with less resistance, and we'll feel faith that the universe is taking care of us because it is. You being here, watching this video right now, is not an accident. You are exactly where you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be today. The next time someone asks you, what do you do? Or what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you gonna say? Hey, thank you for watching this, especially if you're still here. This video was hard to make, probably because, like I said, it's something that I struggle with. I had to go back and rewatch this video because I was coming up against the fear that I was making something very bad. The process was cathartic and informative and educational, but the channel has less than 3,000 subscribers right now, so I figure it's the perfect time to just experiment and see what happens if I can show up and meet a deadline. Deadlines have been like my gateway to momentum recently, so I'm just gonna lean into that. And thanks for the comments and likes and subscribes, mostly just because I like connecting with like-minded people. It makes me feel less alone. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.